with a political party whose policies affirm life, liberty, and prosperity for individuals, the community, the nation, and really the world. As I also mentioned last month, I'm a time sergeant, and we will honor your time tonight. We will start with our prayer and pledges by Pastor Joe Martin of C3 Trinity Church. Then our VP of Programs, Christy McCreary, will introduce our distinguished speaker, Bob McEwen. Then I will make a few pertinent announcements and introduce our City Council and school board candidates, who will each take 1 minute-ish to introduce themselves. They're learning their elevator speech. So I ask you to please, because we're putting our speaker first, I do ask you to please extend respect to stay those few extra minutes to hear relevant brief announcements on how you can make the difference, as well as meet these courageous and self-sacrificing individuals who want to serve our community. Our best opportunity to impact government is to get involved locally. Pastor Martin?
Thank you, Jenny. You're amazing. And Christy, thank you for inviting us. And let's all pray together. Will you bow your heads, please? Lord of heaven, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for the prosperity and the blessing and the freedom, Lord, and the joy of being Texans. Lord, it's a great honor for us. And Lord, we're grateful that you've put us here. And Lord, we thank you for the assignment that we have in these next coming weeks and months and years. And Lord, that is to restore liberty and truth, and peace, and prosperity, Lord, to our nation. So help us in that endeavor, Lord. Be with us tonight as Bob shares, Lord. Let the blessing and the anointing of God be upon him. And Lord, be with us, Lord, as we go. Father, motivate us, help us, every one of us, to be involved in the public arena. In Jesus' name, amen. 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 We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll stand, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. And let's honor the Texas flag. I wasn't born in Texas, but I got as fast as I could. So let's honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Pastor Joe. You are good. Well, we're going to get right into the meat of it. It's so good to have everyone here, and we just pray that everyone is okay after what we went through this last week. And what a great turnout. Thank you for coming. It's my privilege to introduce the Honorable Bob McEwen. Bob McEwen has served 6 terms in the United States House of Representatives representing Ohio. During his congressional tenure, McEwen was selected by his colleagues to the senior position as one of 4 Republicans on the Powerhouse Committee Rules that manages the floor time for members and has jurisdiction over all legislation. Bob was also a member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence and a United States delegate to the European Parliament for over a decade. Prior to Congress, Bob served 3 terms in Ohio House of Representatives. And in 2020, this is my favorite part, he was appointed by President Trump to the 1776 Commission to better enable a rising generation to understand the history and principles of the founding of the United States of America. I've read it. God bless you. It's incredible. Bob was also appointed to the Defense Science Board Permanent Task Force on Threat Reduction for the Department of Defense, and he currently is the Executive Director of the Council for National Policy. You should ask him more about that. It's the best organization in the country. On a personal note, I've known Bob and Liz for probably at least 8 years now. They're the true definition of a power couple. They're a team, and Liz is the secret sauce behind everything Bob does. They've never met a stranger. and they're true servants in everything that they do. I've learned invaluable lessons from both of you, watching you serve people in high-profile positions and favored relationships. You've worked with ambassadors and presidents, top voices and leaders, but you've served them all, and you love everyone the very same, with grace and humility. Well, there's not a more wonderful couple in the world. I'm so honored to have you personally tonight. And I want to thank you for coming so far just to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my friend, Honorable Bob McEwen.
I certainly appreciate that. She come all this way. Anybody would come all this way to be with you all. I mean, my goodness, this is more fun. I'm reminded of Mule. Who was it? Lane, you said you were from Kentucky? You know, and they have the Kentucky Derby down there. They heard about a farmer in my territory in southern Ohio got his mule entered in the Kentucky Derby. And all the neighbors were making fun of him and said, he's got no chance of winning, you know that. He said, I know. He says, but he's going to be in some mighty fine company. And that's kind of the way I feel in coming here. And what I'm going to do is something I just always love to do anyway, and that is to just answer questions, do questions and answers. So let me take about 10 or 12 minutes, make a couple of quick observations, and then if you'll be prepared with a question or two, we'll take our 25 minutes and get on to the other folks. But first of all, let me thank you for coming. This nation is the hope of the world. People have no way to fully appreciate what America means to the rest of the world. I've had the opportunity. I'm so thankful. Debbie Georgatis is here, I believe, at the moment. If she's not, there she is. And fortunately, she had me on a radio program about an hour ago, and so I got everything all prepared is what I'm going to say, because she asked me all the perfect questions. And one of them was very simply that I've spoken at prayer breakfasts, presidential prayer breakfasts in probably 25, 30 countries. And when they do that, they always have representatives from the parliament and from the diplomatic corps and elsewhere, and they pray for their country, but then they always spend at least half of their time praying for the United States of America, because America is the standard for right and wrong in the world. If a ship is attacked on the high seas, as happened over 300 times last year, to whom can that person appeal? Such as the British tanker. You remember rule Britannia? Britannia rules the waves for 250 years. When a British tanker was attacked in the Straits of Hormuz about 6 months ago, to whom can they appeal? Only the 327,000 Americans that wear the uniform of the United States Navy. The same goes for a yacht in the South China Sea or in the Caribbean island. America is what stands for right and wrong. If you want to float and destroy a currency in Guatemala or some small country and a bunch of billionaires get together like Soros and try to sink it, who is the only force in the world that can undo that? The United States. Say you do that to them, we'll lock you out of the banking system. So America stands for what is right. If people are cheating, if they're stealing from patents and producing books or plays or TV sets or anything else, America is the standard for what's right. If you do away with America, which is very easily done, if you can circumvent America, then it just goes to power. And with power, then the British or the Russians can make a deal with the Chinese, and they say, we'll take this part and we'll do that part. Why does a country not overrun another country? Because America will say, quit it, don't do it. And so we're like the teacher. And if the teacher leaves the classroom, you know what happens. And we elected folk, Brother Barack thought that America was a force for evil. And he thought if America withdrew, things would get better. And of course, we saw that it certainly didn't. Let's just take a dipstick as to who America is. 4% of the population of the world. They write more books, more plays, more symphonies, more copyrights, more inventions than the other 96% of the world combined. For thousands of years, people hope to someday fly. I keep talking about these things because Ohio, as you know, these good right-brothered folks invented the airplane and the light bulb and the telegraph and the telephone. Global positioning system. There's a ship parking in Singapore and Hong Kong at this very moment. There's a plane flying over Africa because those socialist countries have let their air traffic control systems deteriorate. A plane flying any place on the planet is using a global positioning system conceived, invented, and maintained by Americans. There's a Mercedes dealer in Buenos Aires ordering a part from Stuttgart, Germany using an internet conceived, invented, and maintained by Americans. No nation on earth has blessed the nation, the world like this nation has done, and it's created more wealth. We love to talk about poverty. Brother, if you're running for office, you talk about how horrible it is to America. You go down to Oklahoma or down to Arkansas and go out in the Ozarks and get black and white film and take a picture of somebody sitting there on the front porch and say, isn't it terrible the way people live in this country? Well, let's put that in perspective. That is the GDP of Arkansas. The gross domestic product, goods and services produced by that little state is larger than the 6th largest nation on earth, 220 million people. 91 million Filipinos make less wealth every year than 3.5 million Oklahomans. The state of Illinois produces more wealth than the entire 140 million Mexicans. The list goes on and on. The second richest spot on earth is Western Europe, France, Germany, Britain. In America, we have a level below which we will not permit a person to sink. You come to this country, sit down on the park bench, gripe and complain about the country. We will bury you with stamps for food, a roof over your head, a bed to sleep in, unlimited health care for you and anybody you've ever met. A person living in poverty in America, this is not my idea, this is the Wechter study done by the Wall Street Journal and the Heritage Foundation, done every 24 months for the past 37 years. A person living in poverty in America is more likely to have a telephone, a television, an air conditioner, an automobile, eats more meat, has more square footage space than the average resident of the second richest spot on earth, Western Europe. Now the question has to be why? There's skyscrapers all over the planet. Why? Because an American named Elisha Otis invented the elevator. And there are places where it's 100 and 120 degrees. Why? Because an American, God love him, by the name of Willis Carrier, invented the air conditioner. And as a result, why is that? There's a reason for it. Are we smarter than anybody else? Nope. Do we work harder than anybody else? Nope. Are we freer than anybody else? We always have been. And that is what is at stake in this race. There's only two opportunities. There's freedom. There's a car going down the street out here. There's only two ways I can get money out of that car. Only two. One is called free enterprise. That's where I lay awake nights figuring out ways to do something good for that person, such that they'll slam on the brake, pull in and say, oh, you're going to wash my car, clean the carpeting, and wipe off the dash and the windows. I'd much rather have that than have this $10 bill. Oh, I'd much rather have that pair of shoes than this. A global positioning, I'll never get lost again. I'd much rather have that than have this $200. Under free enterprise, people figure out how to bless people so that they voluntarily, freely reach in their pocket and make an exchange, which at the end of the exchange, they are both better off. And if they're not, they don't make the exchange. And they have created wealth. And that is the only way that wealth is created. Let me hit it again. A farmer has a pile of wheat, a baker has 10 empty ovens. The baker says, if I had his wheat, I could make donuts and sell them in the morning. They make an exchange. The farmer says, if I had his money, I don't need this wheat. I could get a new tractor and put a roof over the barn. And so they make an exchange in which at the end of the exchange, they are both better. They have created wealth. With that money, then he can hire another fellow to go out and get another 400 acres. And that is the way that wealth is created, only through free enterprise. I said there are two ways to get out of that car. The other one is, I just come along and I take it. You stop at the parking lot, I put a gun in the window, and I say, I want 50% of everything in your purse. Have I created any wealth? No. Have I redistributed wealth? Yes. From her purse to me. And the degree to which I am improved is the degree to which she's diminished. So wealth is not created. That's why Democrats, every time they open their mouth, they talk about how they're going to redistribute wealth. You heard the mayor of New York. It takes a certain amount of skill and effort to totally destroy a place in less than 3 years, but he's been able to do it. He says the problem in America, he said, is that there's plenty of money in America. It's just the problem that the money, the way it's distributed. We need to, and it's all that multi-millionaire from Vermont that got elected to the Senate, living out of his Volkswagen bus, and now Bernie Sanders is now, he doesn't talk about millionaires anymore. He used to talk about millionaires, but now he's a multi-millionaire, so now he's picking on the billionaires. But he's always talking about redistributing wealth because they don't know how wealth is created. Freedom allows wealth to be created. Socialism comes along and takes it. And so that criminal that reaches his gun in and takes it away, let's don't call him a criminal, let's call him a congressman. And he reaches in and he takes half of the money. Let's call him a city councilman. He comes in and takes half of the money. The impact is the same. The impact is the same. You go to the pay window, pick up your money, walk across the parking lot, a fella comes up, puts a gun in your ribs, says, I want 50% of everything you have. You sit down with your wife and children, this is how much money we have for food and clothing and shelter, the kind of vacation we can take, the kind of car we can drive. Or you make it all the way to your pickup truck, open the paycheck, and you see Uncle Sam's already been here. It's half gone already. The impact is the same. And the question is, the greater the government, the greater the socialism, the greater the poverty, the greater the freedom, the greater the wealth. And it only works that way every time. That's what politics is all about. When I was in the state legislature in Ohio, Ohio was #1 in new job creation. We created more jobs than any state in the union. We elected a governor and said we can put a stop to this. And so when the last governor took over, Ohio was 49th out of the 50 states. 49th. Look at the 50. For the first time in history, Ohio Buckeyes looked at number 50 and said, thank God for Michigan. If you understand this principle, you can make any rich place poor. California had the 5th largest GDP in the world. It's now #8. It's in its free fall. It used to be #1 in education. You remember that. It's now number 37. They will foul up a 2-car funeral. New York was the 2nd largest. Now Texas is the 2nd largest. So the 4 largest were California, New York, Texas, Florida. Texas, Florida have freedom. They're growing and prospering. People want to come there. California, New York, they're taxing people that drive through the place for fear they'll leave. You cannot afford. You can either buy a house or rent a U-Haul in California. The price is the same. You can't rent a U-Haul, and they literally they pay people to drive them there because everybody's leaving so fast. They only do that every time. Tell them I'm not home. They'll do it to a school district. They'll do it to a city council. They'll do it to a county. They'll do it to a state. They'll do it to a country. And that's about where we are. I have about 7 minutes late. We'll go to questions. I'm now going to do something that I usually don't do. That is, I'm just going to read something. Because I sat down and I made some observations that our country, they told us that we were finished. Now, some of us remember when they did it the first time. Jimmy told us that we had to learn to live with less. Wear your sweater, ride your bicycle. America's coming to an end next Tuesday a week. There isn't anything anybody can do about it. And that was the way it was. And when they mess something up, they never take responsibility. They say, well, that's just the way the stars were aligned. There wasn't anything anybody could do. You and I know it has nothing. They're the ones that drove the car in the ditch. And yet, and when Ronald Reagan came along and said there's nothing wrong with this country that proper leadership can't cure, and those gas lines disappeared, America took off at the end of the decade. I'll make one quick reference. In 1980, they formed a thing called the Conference on African Unity. It's now called the African Union. At their first conference of these 56 African countries, the keynote address was given by Leonid Brezhnev, the president of the Soviet Union. He said to these African nations, he said, by the end of this decade, this is 1980, by 1989, by the end of this decade, we, the Soviet Union, will be able to work our will any place on the planet because the correlation of forces, economic, military, and political, are on the side of socialism and communism. That's what we were told. Fortunately, a 70-year-old man had grown up in the 20s and knew America, and he got on television the night before the election. He said, there's nothing wrong with this country that proper leadership can't cure. Came into office, what did he do? Instead of taking money out of that purse, he put money back in. He cut taxes. America began to take off like a rocket. By 1989, by the end of that decade, the entire world was chanting USA, USA, USA. Leadership makes a difference. 4 years ago, America was in a similar pickle. If you go to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis and look at their webpage, they have the median income for America from 1996 to 2006 to 2016, and while it fluctuates a bit, it is exactly the same. It's within $200 of a 20-year period. In America, it increased nearly at all. With inflation, it actually went slightly down. In the first 36 months of the Trump administration, it went up $5,800. Leadership makes a difference. Let's just do a couple of them, then we'll go to questions. I hope you're about ready. Unemployment, you know, hit the all-time record low. Income in every category went up, 7 million new jobs. Income inequality diminished for the first time in 25 years. 1.5 million manufacturing jobs. You remember Barack, who's going to have the magic wand? Can't do it. They're all going away. I mean, you know what they did. Liz grew up in Akron, rubber capital of the world. That's where Goodyear and Harvey Firestone, all those folks are from. They don't make a single tire in Akron anymore. That's the United Rubber Workers. They know how to put a stop to that, and they did. The supply chain reform. Chinese are not stupid. And they discovered it's simple. You sit down, here's what's needed to make a Mercedes. Here's what's needed to make a refrigerator. Here's what's needed to make an air conditioner. So therefore, if we make this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece, the entire world will be dependent upon us. And they did that for over 30 years until a businessman from New York said, that's dumb as a post. Why in the world are we doing that? And he went over and flipped on the light. It's like the whole world woke up. And the Mercedes, everybody said, why are we doing this? Began to move their factories away. In fact, as America remained steady, China was growing at 8, 9, 10%, and they were just about to overtake us in 2016. And for some reason, I don't know, God was very good to us. It wasn't a political party that did it, and it wasn't because everybody said, this is really my favorite candidate, but nevertheless, God fortunately gave us a leader, and instead of them overtaking us, the stock market in China has gone down 47%, and the American stock market went up 60%, and America was in the process of kicking them to the curb for a good, healthy, long time. And that's why this last election is a frustration and why we have to undo it. The supply chain that was put in place over these last 30 years has been completely obliterated because of the leadership of the United States. Dow Jones on the day that Donald Trump was elected was 18,000. It went to 31,000. On the day of election, not with COVID and everything else, on the day of election, November 2020, 56% of all Americans said that they were better off than they were 4 years ago. That's the highest since they began ever taking the test, asking the question. Largest tax cut, average family received $2,200. Standard deductions were doubled. Child credit was doubled. Expensing, for the first time in history, when you buy something, you could write it off. It's called seed corn. Capital gains is called a seed corn. We used to call that when you took some of the corn and you put it in the corner and you didn't eat it and you didn't sell it because you need it next spring. And that's what capital is. And so when the wall fell, I was helping Václav Klaus, who was he was going to be the finance minister, ultimately became prime minister and president of Czechoslovakia. And we were working all day, and I said to him, I said, Václav, what sort of capital gains tax are you looking on? That is the tax on the capital, on the seed corn. And he was eating soup, and he stopped and looked at me and said, Bob, we're not stupid. So the tax on capital gains in Central and Eastern Europe, those former communist countries, is zero. You don't do that. That's dumb. In all of the Asian tigers, Thailand, Singapore, Japan, Korea, all the tax is zero. In America, we had the highest in the world, and Barack Obama doubled it. America came in, and for the first time in history, under Donald Trump, probably under Ronald Reagan, we cut the investment tax in half. We were pleased as punch. We were so proud of ourselves. Donald Trump took it to zero, just like the rest of the country. The tax on corporate taxes was the highest in the world. The first 2 years of Barack Obama, we were number 2. Botswana was number 1. America was number 2. Botswana was smarter than we are. We then, by the time Barack Obama left, America had the highest corporate taxes on the planet. And under Donald Trump, we dropped it to the bottom 1/4. We could go on and on with a whole series of things. One of the things I want to mention about, one that I like, is the safe vehicle thing, where they used to make the car so small you had to sit with your knees in your face. And he undid that a bit. And then he allowed people to drill again for oil. And I've said for 30 years, this nation could be energy independent anytime we got a leader that wanted to be. And by golly, it took him 18 months until America, for the first time in 71 years, began exporting oil and gas. We are now the largest producer of natural gas, and he had, for the first time, approval of a liquefied natural gas port in Houston and in Louisiana that had been pending since the 1970s, and nobody had the guts to approve it, but he did. The list goes on and on so now it comes down to the point is what, and let me just talk about drugs just for a quick second. Ronald Reagan recognized that the patent on drugs made it such that you could charge a lot because it takes a lot to invent them, and it takes $1 billion or so to create a drug. And so when you have a patent on it, you get to recoup the money. And then after that, it created a thing called generic that you would have to go to sell it generically. Anybody else could produce it. It was strongly opposed by the pharmaceuticals. Reagan was able to get it passed. But now, lo and behold, after the regulatory operators and pharma had been working with the FDA and others, 85% of all generic drugs had only one single producer. In other words, they had done regulatorily what they could not do statutorily, and that is they weren't able to compete. Donald Trump said, that's dumb, put a stop to that. And so made the pharmaceuticals mad, and you know what has happened. For the first time in 40 years, the price of pharmaceuticals, instead of going up 10 and 13% a year, they actually decline. And anybody in this room that uses insulin, or anybody uses EpiPen, has known what happens when you change presidents. Because one of the first things that Mr. Biden did was he undid. And if you want to know who's running it, by the way, Susan Rice is running the country. She was the National Security Advisor. She's the one that's doing all of these executive orders. The president appointed 10 of us to the 1776 commission that did only one thing. It was very, very groundbreaking. It said America was formed on July 4, 1776. The New York Times doesn't know that. And so they thought it started in 1619, and they have successfully put it into 70% of all the schools. And to tell people that, and they loved slavery, their party was dedicated to slavery. The Ku Klux Klan was established to continue slavery. Jim Crow, they began to pass local ordinances when they couldn't get the federal government to go along because their party is dedicated to slavery. They talk about Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks couldn't sit in the front of the bus, and they say, look what America did. America did nothing. America didn't have a thing to do with that. You go back and check. That was the National City Bus Company. The National City Bus Company is headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. They ran buses in 38 cities in 16 states. They wouldn't mistreat their customers. The Democrat City Council in Montgomery, Alabama. And in case you missed the point, the Democrat City Council in Montgomery, Alabama said that blacks had to sit in the back. Until finally Rosa Parks said, you can't do that to me, I'm an American. And then once you get into court, you put a stop to it. And now they want to go around and act like America did. No. Your party did it, Nancy. You want to have that nice statue of Rosa Parks and so on about how she was mistreated. And she was, not by America, by your party. That's who did it. And so now it's entrusted to us as to what we're going to do about it. And they are holding on by their fingertips. This is not a time. The Apostle Paul, when he was locked into a cave in Rome, which is not a good place to be 2,000 years ago, and besides, when he got out, it wasn't so good either. They beat the tar out of him. He got beat to a pulp, twice left for dead. And so he's sitting there, but he said, do not become weary in well-doing. That is, don't get discouraged as when things get bumpy. And in our case, they have a tie in the Senate, and in the House, they have control by five votes. Now, let me just tell you, in 1936, Republicans had 110 out of 435. In other words, if we wanted to pass something, we had to get over 100 Democrats to go with us. Well, now all we need is 5. 33 House seats were held, Donald Trump carried them. They're held by Democrats. If we can get 5 of those 33 to do what's right for America, we can hold this thing up for a little while, because the country needs our recovery. And as I said, when we can get weary in well-doing, just think about those that founded this country. Think about poor George Washington, when he is the winter of 1776. It's now Christmas time. His army's gone from 45,000 to 7,400. He hasn't won a single battle. third of them deserted, a third of them have died from dysentery, and the rest of them are barely able to move, and they're only hanging on for one reason, because on January 1st their enlistment is up. And they figure, I've come this far, I'm gonna hang on for another week. And his prayer partner and best friend, Benjamin Rush, comes down from New York and he said, you gotta have a victory, George. We gotta do something here. And so they decided they were gonna go down on Christmas Day, and they were gonna cross the Delaware, and they were gonna attack the Hessian soldiers, the British army that was located in Trenton and had enough supplies and material and armaments and ammunition to get them through the winter. And so Thomas Paine wrote that on December 23rd. These are the times that try men's souls. The sunshine soldier, the summer soldier, he'll disappear, but this is when people have to stand. Washington read that. He said, I want that read to my troops. So he said, how many of you can stand? 2,400 of them can stand now, the 7,400. The rest of them were too ill to march. He had it read to him, and he said, this is the moment in which we're going to do something that's never been done in the history of mankind. You and I can look over our shoulder and we see the abundance, the greatness that is America. He's got a picture nobody's ever done it. Not just America has done it. Nobody's ever done it. He says that because God made you, you have the right to build a great country the whole world can look to with hope. And in the process of doing that, we don't have a government, we don't have any money, we don't have any armaments, but we're going to take on the strongest military and political power in the world. We're going to beat them. And so on that evening of Christmas Eve, 1776, they go down, they're going to cross the Delaware and attack on Christmas Day, but the snow is absolutely horrendous. It sort of gets you back to the idea that you think sometimes, as Paul could ask and others ask, if I'm doing what God asked me to do, it ought to be easier than this. Well, there's no real example of it. And so here the entire nation is hanging by a thread. The hope of something that's never been done before is about to disappear, and they're having such a horrible, terrible blizzard that they can't see each other. Their boots fall apart. They wrap them with burlap. You can follow the blood in the snow. The bottom line, let me just tell you, we didn't lose a single soldier. The only two that died in the entire effort froze to death on the march. And yet by morning time, they're only halfway across the river. They're going to have to attack in broad daylight. They do it, they kill 86, they wound another 800 and capture 1,200 more than that. But they get enough supplies and ammunition to get them through the sun. The nation erupts in celebration. Only 5 wounded. One of them was James Monroe, the fellow that he got hit in the artery. He would become the 5th president of the United States. And unfortunately, it spurted blood so they could see it and they could stop it. Little 19-year-old Alexander Hamilton was there as aide-de-camp to George Washington, becomes the Secretary of the Treasury that makes the American dollar 3 years after our new country is formed the strongest currency in the world. James Madison becomes the father. He's 23 years old. 10 years later, he becomes the father of the Constitution. This nation was founded by people who looked at the opportunity and not over their shoulders at the fear. And we now have to, out of respect for them, out of respect for the way the nation, that God has blessed this nation, now the privilege has been given to us, there never has been a time like these next 24 months. You and I must do everything that we can. A good place to start this year, in the odd-numbered years, is city council, is school boards. Take over those school boards because those people are trying to destroy our children. And then we're going to take back the Congress, and then this nation, and this, no, I won't get into that. Let's go to questions. Let me just tell you, I'm delighted to be here. Of all the places I could be, and there's no place I'd rather be than with all of you. Let's take 3 of them, and if not, I will sit down and be happy. Yes, sir.
3.5 months later, there's still doubt and uncertainty regarding the election and the integrity of the election. The Supreme Court is going to abrogate its responsibility in acting and hearing the evidence. What's a Texan to do?
Well, you can get discouraged when you go back-to-back losses. That one yesterday, I have no explanation for. Well, let me explain what that is, and that is that the state legislature has the authority to set the rules. And they knew that on the key states that they could get control of the Secretary of State. Now, who knew this? Soros knew this, and Democrats knew it. And while you and I are teaching Sunday school and coaching Little League, these guys are going around making sure that they elected the Secretaries of State in Wisconsin and in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. And so then they would decide that they wouldn't enforce the law. They'd go around the law. Why? Because we're in an emergency. See, all of this stuff had to work together with this pandemic. And when they went around and didn't enforce the law in Pennsylvania, Alito said, and as you know, there are 9 districts, appellate circuits, each justice babysits one of them. And that one was Alito's district, and so he gave an order that they had to segregate out the ones that abided by the law and the ones that didn't. And the thought would be then that we could then have the count. And so that was done, and it came before the court for an emergency declaration. This is the 3rd week of November, 2 weeks after the election. You need to jump the gun here and get it up in front and consider this. And they did it by Zoom. And Alito makes the point. He explains to him, he says, they're not allowed to do that. And you have 18 attorneys general that are protesting it. These states need to be heard. And besides, not only does the Constitution say that, but we had a case on that. It was called Bush v. Gore. And in Bush v. Gore, in the year 2000, the Democrat Supreme Court in Tallahassee said, I'm really sorry that Al Gore lost, keep counting. And so they did for another week, and he's still behind. They said, go again, let's try another week. And after about 3 weeks, the Supreme Court said 9-0, you can't do that. You gotta abide by the law sometime. And so with that, the court decided that you couldn't circumvent the state legislature, and the count stopped. And Mr. Alito is saying very forcefully to his justice, he said, not only does the Constitution say that, but we have a case on point, exactly the same thing. Pennsylvania is exactly Bush v. Gore 2000. And the Chief Justice of the United States, Mr. Roberts, said, quote, but the cities weren't burning to the ground. The cities weren't burning to the ground. Which means what? Means you only enforce the Constitution when Antifa is happy? If Antifa goes out and burns down some city, you don't enforce the Constitution? That's virtually what it said. Yeah. And many of us were furious about it. But then in order to consider it properly, rather than getting the emergency consideration in November, we felt it was going to come up, and most of us felt there's no way you can avoid it. No way you can avoid it. In order to take a case before the Supreme Court of the tens of thousands that are applied, 4 justices have to say, I want to hear that. And so we found out yesterday that Mr. Alito, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Gorsuch said, I wanted to, and the other 6 did not. And now it's been allowed to stand. That decision is what has made Joe Biden president of the United States. And I repeat, this is a very serious time. And what do? We don't quit. I'll tell you that. My friend Jerry Falwell said, the thing about conservatives, when they lose, they quit. And when they win, they quit. He said, and he called them liberals, now we call them progressives. When progressives lose, they keep fighting. And when they win, they keep fighting. And brother, we have to do the same thing, because everybody who's ever shed a drop of blood for this country, this is the way our folks felt in the 1930s when we saw every branch of government against them overwhelmingly. We're only 1 vote away in every instance, but we got to stay at it. 2 more and I'll let you go. 1, yes sir.
Speaking of courts, the fraud perpetrated on the FISA court, is there any possibility somebody will be brought to justice?
I think it's unlikely at this time. I think that there has been a severe corruption of our justice system, and if anybody found that out, it was Donald Trump. And time after time after time, he found out what they wouldn't do, and he's learned. And so let me just quickly wrap this thought up. That is that in any midterm election, 2 years into a term, whoever holds the White House loses votes in Congress. And so, for example, Eisenhower carried both houses in 1952 and 1954. He lost control of Congress. Republicans never had it again for another 40 years. When Nixon and Reagan won, 2 years into it, they lost. They didn't have a majority, but they even lost what they had. The only thing worse than that is the second term. There have been 16 presidents been reelected twice. And the midterm of the second term is even, as we say in Southern Ohio, worser. And I was campaigning in Georgia, and I remember Matt Mattingly, a classmate, was the first Republican ever elected from the state of Georgia in 1980 under the Reagan landslide. In 1986, midterm, Reagan, second term, he, along with everybody else, a whole lot of people got defeated. We lost control of the Senate. Tom Daschle became a U.S. senator, etc. And they asked Matt Mattingly, they said, why do you think you got beat? He said, well, people just got fed up with low inflation, low interest rates, and low unemployment. because people look for change 3 years into it. Now, as you know, most of the cities were thoroughly boarded up on election day because they thought Trump was going to win. They didn't think they could steal enough of it. He did win. That's right. and so they were prepared to have fire and chaos. And I believe that's all we would have had continually for the next 2 years. And then in the midterm, I think that with all the chaos and all, having those Republicans been in control for 6 years, I think there would have been a landslide like we've never seen. And I think it would have been very difficult for a Republican to have followed that. Now the possibility exists. You always have to make allowance for the contingency that the Lord knows what He's doing. And as I told, the last time I was with the president was the Friday before he left office, and I said, Mr. President, those guys with their pickup trucks and their Trump's flags, I said, those people wouldn't know a Lincoln Day dinner if it fell on them. I said, they've never been involved in politics. All they know is they saw their country getting kicked in the teeth for 25 years and they got fed up with it. And they got somebody came along and was on their side, and they got aroused for the first time, and they saw what happened to you. And I said, they're ticked. And they're going to be involved. Now, this is what our side has been needing for a long time. And if we can work diligently to prevent them from, first of all, defeating H.R. 1. Nothing in your lifetime or mine is more important than preventing them from doing what they did in California 8 years ago, what they've done in Pennsylvania this time. They want to pass a law to do that everywhere. That you cannot ask for a person's identification. You can register. They call it same-day registration. That's nonsense. I mean, there's no registration. That means you bring a busload of people. You just go. You vote all day long because you're registering at every booth there all day long. By the time they find out you didn't do it, they're over. You have to have ballot boxes out, available, unguarded for 45 days before an election. I mean, they're going to make it so that you can steal anything. You know, we have to. If we can prevent that from happening, and we can hold this fella who is standing periodically, you see him propped up in front of the presidential seal. If we can hold this at bay, there is a possibility that this can come back and be a tremendous victory for us. We cannot become weary. We can't let go now. This is as important as it ever been. We are on the 5-yard line, and anybody says, the house is on fire, I'm going to go off and start a new fire department. No. We got to fight this one right here, and I know that you are, and I'm honored to be with you. God bless.
Don't you wish you had a great history teacher like that growing up? But I love the statement, look at the opportunity, not over your shoulder at the fear. So I understand why. I heard on a Charlie Kirk program, and his guest was another young man, and they said Bob McEwen is a wise man in my life. So you can understand that. Thank you for pouring in to the next generation. I have handouts for you, just a few more minutes of announcements. In your handouts have the contact information regarding the following announcements. You're here because you love America. So what can you do to keep America, America? Well, he said it, start local. Our membership drive is occurring now with a deadline of March 1st to be included in our directory. Please see Shannon Rust. Are you here, Shannon, in the room or out? Okay, Shannon Rust and Elisa Sikorsky for any questions. We're a volunteer organization, and your membership is the lifeblood of PCRW. We educate, activate, and train you. We support conservative candidates, and we encourage one another. You may join at the regular level of $100. The Friends level of $250, which includes private events with special guests, as well as allows greater donations to worthy candidates. At $60 if you belong to another club. And gentlemen, you can join these lovely, smart ladies for only $60 as well as associate members. And then students, we're so glad to have younger people coming. We need you, and you're encouraged to join for only $30. With our high caliber of speakers, example today, education, training, and catering, you more than receive your dollar's worth. If you choose to send a check, please make sure that you completely fill out the membership form. And you can also join online at parkcitiesrepublicanwomen.org/membership. And the levels are reiterated there. First-time guests attend free, but we will be charging now $15 guest fee for the second visit and beyond, because we are Republicans and we must watch the bottom line. We actually pay attention to that. And then Pia Lara and Vicki Little. Is Pia here? Okay, Pia, you want to stand up real quick? There are community impact chairs, and they organized the diaper drive tonight to benefit Young Lives, which is a ministry of Young Life to teen moms. And we're honored to have Rachel Sylvester of Young Lives as our guest tonight. Is she here? She was going to come, but we have, you can visit with her at the diaper table. And then Pia and Vicki also have researched an opportunity to serve Mercy Street, which is a wonderful ministry in West Dallas, and they need mentors. So please see Pia again for your interest in that. As was mentioned, our number one legislative priority is election reform. So please see Liz Turner and Nancy Mello, I think I saw Nancy right back here, to help promote this legislation, as well as to join the get-togethers they're having to mail postcards for our city council candidates. They, along with our member Susan Fountain, have carefully vetted these candidates. And remember, city council decisions impact your personal life, your safety, through funding the police, through infrastructure, zoning, and much more. Law and order starts local, and their decisions impact your daily life. Now, please give your utmost attention to the following Dallas City Council candidates. And we have one HPISD, Highland Park School Board candidate. If y'all want to just come over here and line up, I guess I'll just state it. Mike Fetzer, District 2, Israel Varela, District 7, Judy Kumar, District 9, Barry, sorry, I'm not saying that right. I typed it wrong. What is your son's name?
Barry Wernick.
Wernick, my spell check did not work. I'm sorry, Barry. Wernick, I should have remembered. District 11, Elizabeth Viney, District 14, Leland Burke, District 3. Did Wendy Macon make it? Okay, and then Highland Park Independent School District. And I just found out myself, having children there, don't assume they're going to teach you everything you want your children to know. So it's very important, even in Highland Park, to know who your your school board candidates are. Kelly McAtee. So please just line up and come give us your elevator speech. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Fetzer. I'll be running in District 2. For those of you guys that don't already know, District 2 encompasses part of East Dallas, all of the Deep Ellum area. Then gets real skinny, shoots up to Oak Lawn, and then spreads out around Love Field and UT Southwestern. And so, why am I running? So, I'm running because although I've spent my entire adult and professional life here in Dallas, I was actually born in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. So I left Chicago to Texas to enjoy the strong state and local economy and the inherent Texas values. And when I got here, needless to say, I was very concerned with the direction I saw the current leadership in city council heading, because I had seen this movie before in Chicago, and I'll tell you folks, the ending of that movie is not pretty. And so about a month ago, in the middle of the night, hear 5 gunshots go off about 2 doors down from where I lay my head at night. And so, at that moment, I see the police take over a half hour to respond, see 2 people get carried out in stretchers, 2 doors down from me. This had a huge impact on my local neighborhood, and that is when I felt my call to action to start my campaign for District 2 and to make a safer Dallas for all of our citizens. So, with that being said, I hope that you will support me to become the next city councilman for District 2, and not only the next city councilman for District 2, but the youngest city councilman ever elected in the history of Dallas at only 27 years old. Thank you.
I'm back. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you all are still upset with the last election? Yeah. Everybody. We need you. Local elections matter. These are the times that try men's souls, right? I'm Israel Varela. I'm running for District 7. Many of you all heard me last month speak, so I won't go on too much about that. But I'm running against an incumbent who was the ringleader for the defund the police movement. I live in the highest crime district in all of Dallas. We lead in murders, aggravated assaults, armed robberies, rape, you name it. Every criminal category, we lead District 7. That's not a good statistic to have, and it's not something to be proud of. Just recently, this past weekend, we finished walking one of the precincts, 1063, which is probably the smallest precinct in our district. And we got a really good response from the residents and the community. Sunday evening, I went down to Southeast Dallas, Fraser Court's projects down there, as well as the Mill City area, which is a very impoverished area, to hand out food and bottled waters to the homeless and the community residents there. And one thing that was consistent throughout the entire weekend of me talking to people is, we want cops in the community to stop the crime. They didn't say we want social workers. They didn't say we want all of this reimagining the police stuff that the city council is spewing with all their programs outside of the police department. They said we want cops in the community to stop the crime, period. And that's why I'm running. After seeing a 15-year-old teenage boy shot and die in my neighborhood, I'm sick of seeing children die in the streets. We need you. We need you to donate to our campaigns. We need you to volunteer, to block walk for us, to phone bank for us, mail postcards. I got door hangers. I got trifold brochures. I got postcards ready to go. We need you. So I'm running for Dallas City Council District 7, Israel Varela, to be the next councilman. And with your support, I hope we can get that done. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Elizabeth Viney. I'm running for district council seat for District 14. That's East Dallas and just sort of uptown and downtown. One thing we all believe here, right, is life is sacred. It's sacred from the womb to the tomb. If life is sacred, it deserves protection. Protection begins and ends with safety and with our police and with our first responders. There were 252 murders in Dallas in 2020. 218 of those were minority victims. That is the civil rights problem of our time. And instead of paying attention to that civil rights problem during a year of rising crime, our city council decided to defund the police for political expediency and buy votes, I'm assuming. This year, we're going to show them that that gamble isn't going to work, because we're going to call them on their message of defunding the police. And if these faces are the faces of your new city council, we'll have a change in direction in our city. But as Israel said, we need your help to do so, and we're not ashamed to ask. So please help. Please help us get elected. Again, I'm Elizabeth Viney. I'm running for District 14 for a safer and more prosperous Dallas.
Hey y'all, many of you know me, I'm Ginny Kumar. Mr. McEwen, thank you so much, because I have definitely had some moments in the past 3 weeks where my faith has been wavering a little bit. Not my conviction I have to do this. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I was born in 66, 68, riots broke out when Reverend King was assassinated. There was a vibrant community on Georgia Avenue with small businesses owned by Black business owners. It's never been repaired. What happens when you have riots in the inner city is almost irreparable. When BLM came into every city, do you know what happened? The murder rate went up by at least 60, sometimes upwards of 300%, and we saw that here. I believe a safe Dallas is a vibrant Dallas. It's a place where you can take your children out to play. It's a place where you can have your businesses go. My wonderful husband and I, Ari, over there, who's just my biggest cheerleader and wind beneath my wings, we met in DC and moved to Minneapolis. So when I saw the riots going on this past summer, I knew those buildings. I knew those streets. I knew how hard it was for them to build 187 affordable houses in Minneapolis. They all burned down 2 weeks before they were supposed to open. Those families who basically were hoping they could have a nice home to call their own, they lost their homes because the lawlessness that was allowed to happen because they capitulated to the group that's BLM. That group that which has hijacked our cities, bullied our corporations, and basically stolen money from people because they're like, please donate to us. And then they don't give a penny back to the communities they say they will serve. In South Chicago, basically no grocery stores. It got shut down because of rioting. And we can't let that happen. But the other thing is, you look at San Francisco, where my husband and I also lived. You know, this was supposed to be the Mecca, the great thing. My husband and I are both in IT. I'm in information security, he's a consultant. It was cheaper for us to rent a 4-bedroom house on a marina, on an island, than live in a 2-bedroom apartment. You are considered low income if you earn $110,000 because the rent is so high. About $5,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And that's what's gonna come here. If we don't help protect our homes and our properties and our businesses and manage the way we handle the ability for people to build a life here. We came here because it was affordable to live here. We came here because we knew people here still had strong American values of, it's not a promise that you will get a nice house, but there's the opportunity to get a nice house if you work hard. That is not possible in California. My opponent, the incumbent, is the other author of this. Oh, sorry, District 9, thank you so much. I did say Judith Kumar, but I forgot the district. So I live in White Rock Lake. My particular neighborhood is about 98% white. I got kicked off of next door for saying my thoughts about BLM. Got put back on them. I figure it's really hard for them to shut me down. But you know what? Paula Blackman doesn't campaign in 40% of our district, which is Latino, many of whom don't speak English. And they're the ones who are being burdened by the high crime that's going on. Because she'd rather hang out, and I love White Rock Lake. I love kayaking. I love nature. But she'd rather think about taking care of White Rock Lake than our police department, because the money she got when they took money away from the police department went to dredging the lake. So that 68% increase in crime that we faced, well, hey, at least our park is a lot nicer and prettier. So I suppose, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I was over here, sorry. I'm Judy Kumar. I'm Judy Kumar. Kumar, like Harold and Kumar, District 9, sorry, District 9, but if you like Harold and Kumar, it's a fun movie. But, I mean, this is the other thing. I understand how these people think. I went to the schools that these people went to. Like, I literally went to Sidwell Friends School, which is where Clinton and Obama sent their kids. My advisor at Harvard, I have 2 masters and a PhD from Harvard, advised Clinton. I left the party in 2008. I have a degree in political sociology. I know how they think, and you know what? You're absolutely right. Republicans quit. We need to use their book against them. It's a damned good playbook. Now we can do it with integrity though. We don't have to steal. We just need to energize and motivate and back people and work as a team and also be honest about who's going to be the best candidate. There's 3 people running in my district. The other person is now registered as a Republican, but until 2 years ago, he worked on Paula Blackman's campaign. I don't know, maybe he had a come to Jesus movement. I left when I saw Obama get it over Hillary, so it's possible he changed too. But the city election is too important to count that. Some of you know and saw me block walking in the Park Cities for Donald Trump. Now, how many black people do you think are that fervent about protecting this country that they're block walking? So, anyway, there's 2 other candidates. We're here. We want to protect this amazing city because Dallas is the beacon on the hill. If we hold Dallas, other cities will turn. This is what you're not understanding. I'm sure many of you do, so I shouldn't say you're not understanding. But local elections are the most critical ones. They really are. San Francisco is the one that led the call to have sanctuary cities. We could lead the call to say, hey, you know what? You kind of might need to follow the law. They're the ones who led the march to say, let's change the names of buildings. It's cost millions of dollars every time you change a street name or a building name. That's money that could go to the schools so that you can educate people so that they can have jobs and live a better life. That's money that you could use on the roads, because I know some people are not very happy with the potholes, but let me tell you, California has really big potholes in Silicon Valley. I have seen how bad this city will become if we don't stop them. As bad as it is now, this is still better than living in California. This is better than living in Minneapolis. And those were great places. Dallas is still a great place. We can still save this. And all of us here, we're here to make sure we can make this and keep this as a great city. So thanks so much.
That's a tough act to follow. Hello, everybody. My name is Leland Burke, and I'm running for Dallas City Council District 13. Of course, the seat is currently held by Jennifer Gates, but she's not running again due to term limits, so it's an open seat. I've lived in District 13 my entire life. I've raised my 3 children here, I started my businesses here, and I've led my neighborhood crime patrol, my homeowners association, and I've served on numerous boards and commissions, including being appointed by Councilmember Gates to 2 different city boards. I serve as director on the boards of UT Southwestern Medical Center, Safer Dallas, Better Dallas, the Dallas Museum of Art, the Dallas Opera, and the Texas Business Hall of Fame. I've got a heart for Dallas, but more importantly, I have 35 years of experience as a successful conservative businessman. I've shepherded my own companies through challenging economic times, and as our city works to restore the local economy post-COVID, the city needs budget and finance experience now more than ever. As your council member, I'll work to protect taxpayers and improve basic services like roads, parks, and police and fire protection. I fully support our police, and I'll work to ensure they have the resources they need to reduce crime, because I believe that economic growth and opportunity begins and ends with public safety. I will never support a budget that attempts to defund our police.
That's right.
I hope to earn your support. Thank you. I hope to earn your support, and to learn more about my experience and my vision, please go to my website, lelandburke.com. Thank you all very much.
That was Leland Burke, District 13.
Yeah, he said it.
Okay.
Burke. Thank you.
I'm Barry Wernick, and I am running for Dallas City Council, District 11. It's North Dallas. It's just below far North Dallas, although on the west side, just to give you an idea of where the district is, goes from the toll road to Preston all the way up past Keller Springs, Bentry, all the way down south, Walnut Hill between Hillcrest and Central. So that's my district. If you think crime is only in other districts, you're wrong, and you all know this. I will never defund the police, just like everyone else here has said. I am also the only conservative running in District 11, and that's a fact, and you can look at the other candidates' voting records. The reason why I decided to run was because of public safety, my #1 priority. And it was this last summer that when riots were going on and looting, I brought it up to my family that I wanted to run for city council, because I don't want Dallas turning into another LA, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, New York. Remember back when you said those cities' names and you were like, wow, those places are amazing. Well, now look at them. I mean, we have Michael from Chicago here, right? Everyone wants to be here, but let's not turn into those cities. And with our current leadership, that's exactly where we're headed. Only 3 city council people voted not to defund the police. as Leland said, I will ensure that our law enforcement, our police and firefighters will have the resources they need to keep Dallas safe and strong. My slogan, and I hashtag it, Michael taught me that, hashtag United for Dallas, because it's not about District 11 only for me. It's about all the districts. It's about uniting Dallas. The southern sector, the northern sector, eastern sector. We all feel the results of the crime that is going rampant in the city. And down the street from me, I had a friend who, she called 911, heard single mother, alarm went off, called 911, she was told, lock yourself in your room. We have more than 600 less police officers in Dallas today than we did 10 years ago. And our city is only growing. Our murder rate is higher than it's ever been in the last 15 years. Dallas has become a hub of human trafficking and sex trade. It's a $99 million a year industry. How do you even solve these problems if we don't have police? And it's something, I serve on some boards, and I'm on the men's advocacy group of New Friends, New Life, an abolitionist for Operation Underground Railroad. So human trafficking, the sex trade industry is something that is important to me, and that we put an end to it. And like I said, I have 3 daughters. When my friend told me that she was told to lock herself in the room, I started wondering, well, what if I weren't home? They told my wife to lock herself in her room. Thank God she's great with guns. But she taught me a lot. When I married her, her father, it was like a dowry. I got a whole thing. But not everyone can afford private security, and not everyone can afford weapons cache that I've got somehow. And it's true. This is a serious issue. Public safety, number one. Look for me. If you've spoken to me, you know I have other priorities too. But everything else will fall into line once we take care of the public safety. Yeah. Once we have a safe city, people will not be moving away from here. Businesses won't be moving away from here. They'll be moving here. That's what it's all about. Fix the infrastructure, the road, the potholes. Yeah, I just had to replace 2 struts on the front of my car because I went up Hillcrest and hitting the potholes, and that was a few $1,000s. And once again, not everyone can afford private security, and not everyone can afford 2 new struts right then and there and at a moment's notice. And luckily I didn't have my kids in the car because, it's dangerous. Once again, public safety, homelessness. We all see it, it's growing. I could go on and on. I was supposed to have 1.5 minutes, but Judy took about, but it was well worth it, huh? Okay. Imagine all of us on city council, the new leadership. One last thing is, the current city council person, Lee Kleinman, is District 11. I got a call from my opponent who asked me, well, why are you running? I said, well, because I love my city and I love my children. No, Barry, you know me. Why are you running against me? I said, because we live in the same district. And but seriously, I said this. I said, we just have different ideas, different priorities, and ways to get things done. And we can have difference of opinion on how we want to get things done. BLM, which my opponent supports, is about defunding the police. And I told her, if you vote not to defund the police, you do that because Black Lives Matter. You see, they've taken that BLM thing and turned it all around, right? That money's not going to helping blacks or Hispanics or Jews or anyone. I mean, it's going to the Democrat Party. I told her that what really pushed me over and said I have to run was that Lee Kleinman enthusiastically endorsed her. And it's time for new leadership. Not the same old, same old. We don't need more of the same.
Come on.
So let's get new leadership on City Council. Please go to my website, wernick4dallas.com. WERNICK for Dallas.com. I have some signs out back, and all the help. If you can volunteer and help, block walk, whatever, I've got a lot of catching up to do. I just filed on the last day to file, and we need all your help. Thank you, PCRW. Thank you, Bob McEwen. That was awesome. You were amazing.
I'm Kelly McAtee, and I'm responding to the call to run for Highland Park School Board. And we are really excited about it. Thank you, everybody here and in this room. We have all woke to the importance of local, and that is where we can make the biggest difference. And we can't lose hope. We have to dig our heels in and remember that it's always the darkest right before the dawn. And a little bit about me, I grew up in Highland Park. I've lived there on and off for 35 years. I'm a working mom and wife and small business owner. I'm the people's champion. I love to be a voice for those who feel voiceless, and we all feel very voiceless right now. So we need your help. Our kids, our grandkids need your help. They need to be taught how to think, not what to think. It will absolutely make your blood boil to know what we have now as parents discovered with our classrooms now being in our living rooms. We've had our inklings, we've kind of wondered what's really going on here, and now there is unquestionable confirmation that our children need us to engage immediately. They are absolutely not only our flesh and blood, but they are the future. They are our workforce. We don't have a workforce in the city of Dallas because of literacy rates. Think of all of the talent and the gifts locked under an inability to read. Locked up. Cures for cancer. Cures for some of the absolute most challenging things that we face, and there are solutions. And it was said so beautifully by the congressman tonight that if there is proper leadership, there is absolutely solutions. And really, quite frankly, when it boils down to the nuts and bolts, it's just not that hard. And so we have to outlast them, because I promise eventually they'll go home and they'll go do something else when they realize we are an immovable object. And if anything this last year has taught us, it is, we've again had our ideas of what was going on. Well, now it is on full display for all the world to see. So we can mobilize. Please help us all out. Again, my name is Kelly McAtee, Kelly with an I. Go to voteforkelly.com. That's voteforkellywithanI.com. I am running a contested race, so I definitely need help. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Aren't y'all encouraged? We have so many stellar conservatives stepping up to the local plate to serve our city. Please pick up their materials and volunteer as suggested to block, walk, post signs, and donate. You can donate online. And we can make a huge impact on our city through these stellar candidates. Finally, a quick shout out to Stephanie McKinnon, and she designed our new logo. It's fresh and powerful and modern, like all of us are. So And so, just a reminder before you leave, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Therefore, Republicans, go forth undaunted. Thank you. Good night.